I'll take this. Oh, Jimmy, I can't write on this. Wait.
Yeah, that's left the pen.
Hi, Isaac. Glad you're here. Thank you for letting us know. We're going to just wait a couple minutes till everybody else gets on board. Out of your box, Isaac, you're going to need your blue book and this packet, the redesigned SAT. And, oh, Cornell, glad you're here as well. So, my name is Mrs. Hessler, and I'm going to just wait a second. Thank you for letting me know that you're here. Oh, and CJ's here too. Oh, that's awesome. We're all getting on board. That's what the purpose of today is. And we're waiting for for Stephen, and also Brooke is going to watch this later. So she had an emergency. So these lessons will be saved online. You can always, if you have any kind of a conflict, you can watch them later, but we really like you to be here. So we're just one little happy family, and I'm Mrs. Hessler. I've been doing this for 30 years plus because it's great to be such an instrument in your future. We just got word on Friday the kids got their scores from our early fall class, and I had a girl that got a 1470 from and she was aspiring just to a 1400, and she did it online too because she had lacrosse. So I'm letting you know that this is very successful, and you can do it in your pajamas. We'll work about an hour and a half, and then I'm going to give you a little break. We usually do an hour and a half of math, and then I give you about a 5 to 8 minute break. You use the restroom and get a snack. But it's great to have you all here. We'll start in a minute, whether or not Stephen comes. But I'm glad you guys are here and you pulled out this packet. And so that's awesome. So CJ, I'm just curious, did you attend Mellon School? I'm just treading water here for the last minute, because I'm wondering if you had my other son, Mr. Hessler, for art. Or if you went to Jefferson, you wouldn't have. But I'm just treading water here for a minute, waiting for Steve, and Brooke's going to be watching this later. So you gentlemen are experts in online learning. And I know there's a little delay with the internet, but we can work with that. Oh, good. Did he treat you okay, CJ? I always ask that question because I can't pedal him anymore, but I can say something to him. Okay, so what we're going to do, it's now 2 o'clock. So this is just a housekeeping day for everybody to get on board. Like I said, we're still waiting for Stephen. Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah. And Brooke's going to be watching this later. So if you don't understand something, just put a big question mark in the chat room, because we make all our mistakes here. It's interactive, and I'm going to be asking you questions. But for the start here, my email address, which you might want to write in your blue book, and the blue book is yours to keep. You can write in it. The tests we're taking are out of this. And so this is my email, which your parents probably have. But I'd like you to just write this in your blue book. And then the College Board website, you know. And we're getting ready for the December 4th test. So we have a Thursday night class this week, and next Sunday we'll be taking a practice test. So anyway, these are the two addresses. You're probably familiar with the College Board one. So on your SAT, you'll get a score between 200 and 800 in math and reading. Another young man that took the test October 2nd, because they got their scores on Friday, he had a 740 in reading, which was phenomenal. So anyway, 500 is average, and you'll get into college. So that's the good news. You're getting about half right with the 500. But so if you got half right at school, you'd be failing the thing. We like you to get up, obviously. Pitt and Penn State, because all four of my kids went to Penn State, they're looking something between a 550 and a 650 in each of these areas, in math and reading. And so you sort of know you have to be a little above average to get into Pitt or Penn State, Maine. Every question on the test is 10 points. So if you have a 500 math score and you want to go to Purdue Engineering and they require a 590 math score, that's 9 questions only. And so usually we average 100 questions, 100 points in math, because the math on the test is Algebra 2 is what you need, and but they ask it in a different manner. They ask it in through a different lens, and so my job is to not teach you the math. We're going to renew the geometry in 2 packets only, instead of going through a whole 400-page geometry book. And I like to tell you what you don't need to know. So you don't need to know any proofs for geometry, thank goodness. No logarithms. The only trig you need to know is SOHCAHTOA and one identity that we'll go over in the triangle lesson. So my job is to show you everything you're going to need to know for the test and strengthen your skills. Okay, so the first packet out of your blue box, I'd like you to grab this redesigned SAT packet. Okay, so the SAT is not an intelligence test, because your IQ is what God gave you. It's a test of your reading, writing, and math skills, so preparation can significantly improve your score. We're going to go over 4 grammar packets. My son will, he's here. He graduated from Penn State, Phi Beta Kappa, and he was a National Merit Scholar, so you're going to get a younger version to teach your English. So the grammar is actually 1/3 of your reading score. And so we're going to go over all the grammar rules that they test on. So the colleges obviously don't know what an A from one school is compared to an A in another, and this is their way of assessing you behind the admission doors. Okay, it's very predictable. So our class is 36 hours. So, and like I said, the benefit of this is that you're home and it's comfortable, and we get the same results at home. We had to switch to online, obviously, with COVID, and we've gone back into live classes, but it's the same here. Okay, so there's on the test, you obviously just took the PSAT, which I'm not going to worry about right now. because you took it probably last week. But on the SAT, you have 4 sections. You have a reading section, and you have 5 passages, and obviously with 65 minutes, that's 13 minutes a passage. On the ACT, you might have heard of that test. That's a little bit of a time crunch, and they don't give you a formula page. But on that test, you have to do 4 passages in 36 minutes. So it's 9 minutes a passage, and there are very, very few students who can get through that. The grammar part, which I mentioned, it's easy to raise that score. And we have 4 grammar packets that go over the 20 grammar rules. Obviously, there's a no calculator section in math and a calculator section in math. Okay, and I mentioned about this. Okay, so every time they give a test, obviously, they curve it. So on some tests, you can miss, it's generally 10 minutes, or 10 points for each question. But the higher you go, obviously, as you get in those 700 ozone layers, it becomes a little more difficult. We go through easy to hard questions. So a perfect score, obviously, is a 1600. When you see the word super score on a college application, that means they're taking the best math and the best reading from different test sittings. And so a number of students do take the SAT twice. Have any of you taken an SAT? Just put it in the chat room if you have. I was just curious if any of you have taken an SAT. Anyway, in other words, what the super score is if you take it in December and you hit the math out of the park and you know you could get your English up, then you can take the test in March and improve your English. So if the school says super score, that means they're taking the best from each of couple tests. Many scholarships are awarded. So, for example, my son's the art teacher at Mellon. He got into the Schreier Honors College at Penn State, which saved us half tuition, so that's a $1,350. And he can't do math because he can draw, but he couldn't do math. So anyway, that's a significant thing because you can get tax savings off your tuition that your parents don't have to pay for. And so that's a great bonus. Scholarship levels at different levels, like I know usually at a 1,200, Duquesne and the Catholic schools give $3,000 a year, etc. So the SAT, we're gearing up for December, but it's also given in March, May, June, and August. And the asterisk means that the test is actually released to the public. So pretty soon we'll be able to see the October test, and I'll probably be mailing it to you guys because they have to release it because of a truth in testing law. They also relieve them. Otherwise, you take the test, you'll get your score, but you won't be able to see the actual test. So are there any questions so far? Just put them in the chat room. Okay. So for the question and answer service, you can pay $18 and get your entire test back on a computer. Okay, there's a pacing. We're on the next page, obviously. There's a pacing component on the SAT. So I don't want you to read any directions on test day. Time is money, and you're going to go to the question that counts. Regular math problems should be solved in about a minute. You don't want to spend 5 minutes on a question saying, I know I can get this, I know I can get this. Just, put a little asterisk there and come back to it and be careful of how you put the graphite in the bubbles, because time is money. And the math goes from easy to hard. Not the reading, but the math goes from easy to hard. So the first 10 or so, there aren't going to be any traps. But when you get to the latter questions, there's going to be some sharks in the water, and you're going to hear Jaws music, because that's where and we do a lot of the hard questions here. And I realize, because I'm the math teacher, that not everybody sees everything in math right away. So we'll be giving you like an overview in a couple minutes. Okay, there's no guessing penalty anymore in the SAT. So answer every multiple choice question. If you're running out of time, so I usually tell students when they go in, you can't take any technology with you. You could take an old-fashioned watch, and since that you know that the reading's 65 minutes, and if they get you all started at 8 o'clock, then you know you have to be done at 9:05 with the reading, so you can mark that down. And that's one reason we give the practice tests, which is our next topic, because we want you to be familiar with the actual tests on your own. So next Sunday, we gave you some bubble sheets in your box, and we actually, at first we had to write our own SAT, but now there are 8 tests in your blue book, but we do a lot of, we're going to do a lot of questions out of that today in a moment. But on Thursday at 5:30, we have another class, and I'll be telling you which test to do at home over next weekend. So obviously you need 3 hours for each test. We don't want, obviously, it doesn't make any sense to cheat on these. No one sees these test results. You just mail them back to us, and then we mail you the results so you can see the analysis, and you also are able to see the answers. Okay. All right, so let's go on. So the math test, 25 minutes on the no calculator, 55 on the calculator. There's also no essay anymore, so you can be thankful that you don't have to write any essay like students have had in the past. Okay, so in the math section, there's 4 letters that are correct. You can write in these books, so that's yours to chew up and to do. When you take the practice tests, obviously we want you to sort of follow the protocol and not use a calculator on the no calculator section. So you can have a parent time you, or if they're not there, you can time yourself. And so that's the rules. Okay, so these are the formulas they give you. Unfortunately, there's 8 more formulas that they put on the test that you don't know, or that are not listed here, and that's not very honest to them. Obviously, you all know the slope formula, which we're going to work on Thursday, but you might not remember the circle on the coordinate plane question, which we're going to look at in a minute. So we're going to be going over all the formulas you need to know on the test. 8 of them are here. Isn't it nice? They give you the area of a rectangle, but they don't give you the quadratic formula, which sometimes is on the no calculator section. Okay. The grid ends, you know, they're very specific because you have to put the answer in the grid in place. Obviously, you can put in, oh, thank you. You can't, just a couple rules here. Any fractions you have to reduce. If you get an answer like 2.5, you can't grid that. It's like this because the computer down in New Jersey will read it as 21 halves. You have to do this as 5/2 or 2.5. Any repeating decimal has to be carried to 3 places. So like 2/3 could be 0.666 or 0.667, but you have to carry it out 3 places. And that's why we have you do the practice test. You don't get points for putting the number up here, but it's sort of a good idea. You only get points for coloring in putting the graphite in the ovals. And so you can see on the grid, and you never can have a negative answer or a radical or an imaginary number. Most of them will be integers with maybe 2 or 3 that have fractional decimal answers. Okay, this next part is, you can see that there's not much geometry on the test anymore. It's primarily algebra and algebra 2. So this is what you have to know, and obviously the first 400 pages in the book is what you have to know, but who has time as a junior to keep up with everything, maybe do sports or work? So my job is to distill it all down to you. So this is what you have to know, but I'm not interested in going through this item by item. So question 1, we're going to begin with this because I want to show you a strategy. So like I said, my son got into Penn State Honors by strategies in math. So this is one strategy. It's pick numbers. And you can get about 50 points on the test by picking a number. So this is maybe a new phenomenon for you. It's a new tool in your toolbox, and we're going to be using it a lot over the next couple weeks here. But I'm excited because this is where I get to make a difference in your life. So look at it as that box came to your house, and it's to matriculate you or catapult you into your future, hopefully into the school of your dreams and with scholarship money. So how do you pick a number, Mrs. Hessler, and is it cheating? No, it's not cheating. No, they're not gonna, this is not like a math teacher that's gonna ask you to show your work. All you have to do is get the graphite in the oval. So let's look at this one. The rate for a telephone call between 2 cities, so it's for the first 2 minutes, it's 50 cents. And then after that, it's 20 cents a minute. And so I look at this, all these goofy answer choices. I have 4 in front of me, which one is the answer. And so maybe I don't want to think this abstractly, so I can pick a number. And like I said, we're going to be doing this periodically through the class. It's just another weapon I want to give you in your arsenal. So I'm going to do this one. So let's say n is 4. We have a 4-minute call. So the first 2 minutes are going to be 50 cents. And then the next 2 minutes are going to be 20 cents each. So my call is going to be 90 cents. So which answer do I put a 4 in for n and I get out 90 cents? So obviously A is 80 cents, that doesn't work. Look at B, B works, right? Because this is our answer. This would be too much, and so would this. So if you see number 1, can you just put C1 in the chat room so I know you I know this, you might feel uncomfortable with this strategy right now. I had to take a couple more lessons to build confidence in it. But if you can just if you see number 1, put that in the chat room. Otherwise, put a question mark. And I know, Brooke, you're going to be watching this later, so if you don't understand anything, Brooke, you can always email me or call me on the phone. Okay, so CJ sees the strategy. Thank you, CJ. It's an unusual technique, I know, but if you don't, Cornell sees it, and so does Isaac. Great. Okay, let's go to this one, which is a little hard. Oh, Isaac has a question. Sorry. Okay, so Isaac, thank you for being honest. So in other words, the question is a word problem, which can be a little confusing. So what I did was I picked a number for my phone call. I just picked a random number. I didn't want to pick a million. I didn't want to pick a fraction. I just wanted to pick a small number. And so I picked 4. So I have 4 minutes for my call. So I figure out that the first 2 minutes are 50 cents, and then the last 2 minutes, because this adds up to 4, are 20 cents each. So my call is 90 cents. This is all hypothetical, and it would work with any number, but I don't want to pick something really big. And I know this is a new strategy. So then I put back in, my N was 4, and you can see A would give me 80 cents, which is Goldilocks too little. B works because I get 90 cents. C would give me $1.30, which is too big. And this would give me $1.70, which is too big. And I know this works on hard algebra, and we're going to do a little more with these word problems today. So let me just ask you, Isaac, is that any clearer? Just put up a question mark if it's not still clear, but if you got it, just put got it. So I know it's a new strategy, but if you don't want to think real abstractly on the test, you're anxious enough, you can just pick a number and see how it plays out. So I'm just waiting for you, Isaac, to give me a got it or another question mark. Oh, he got it. Great. Okay, now this one is also a little hard. We're going to do a little more with this later. You'll get one of these on every test, but this one is a very hard one. This is an end zone question. So just stay with me a second. We're going to work on this more today. There's one of these on every test, so there's 10 points on every test. So you could get an easy one like F equals MA, solve for A, and you would tell me F over M. That's not a problem. But obviously, at the end zone of the test, if everybody gets it right, they're going to lose their jobs in New Jersey. So this one, the formula above gives the payment needed to pay a loan of D dollars at R% over M months. Which of the following gives D? So we're trying to solve for D. This in terms of, you can just cross off. That's always how they use it. So we're trying to get the D to stand alone. Okay, now if I had P equals dA over B, and I said I want to solve for D, you would tell me, oh, I know what to do. I'm going to multiply by B and divide by A. Do you see what I did with this easy one? I'm just going to take this B, multiply both sides by it, divide by A, and I would get the D. But in this wicked one, because that's what I have to do, I have to demystify the test. So I'm going to change colors here, if I can. This is going to be my A, that whole nasty term. And this is going to be my B. So I just want to get D to stand alone. So I'm going to multiply P by the A term. And, P by the B term the denominator here, and then divide by A. So you're sort of flying like an eagle above the problem, looking at the D, but you want to multiply, and this would obviously be in the end zone, but I have to stretch your brains a little for this. So what answer takes the B, the bottom term, puts it up front, and then divides by the A, and so it would be answer choice C. Because what I'm doing, because they want to confound you, they want you to say, oh, I don't have a clue how to solve this. But that's my job, is to demystify the test. So if you can see 2, just put it in the chat room or put a question mark by it again. Because like I said, and Brooke, you're watching this later, I know. So anyway, okay, so CJ's okay with it. It is hard to see it because your algebra mind. Okay, so Cornell is confused. Thank you for being honest. Okay, so I'm going to start all over. Thank you for being honest. And again, I went to a seminar once, and I read that your frontal lobes in your brain develop until age 25. So it's too late for me, but you guys are developing. Synapses are, cooking right now. So do you see in the question, this is to make sure everybody's sort of got it, we want the D to stand alone. So we want this D to be all by itself. Okay, so like with F equals MA, if I wanted the A to be all by itself, I would divide by M. But here, they made it look impossible because you have all these terms. And so what we need to do is think of this as an A term, that whole thing, that R over 1400 times 1 plus 1400 over R. That's my A term. And then what I'm going to do, so if I had D equals, let me write this again. P equals D A over B. So you're sort of having to fly, like I said, eagle above the problem. You want to be left with only D. So what you want to do is multiply by B and then divide by the A term. And then that'll equal D. So instead of getting all lost in the trees here, we're going to take this this A term and we're putting it downstairs right here. That's my A term. Up on top is what I multiply this by, and so that's going to be my B term. So like I said, if we're not, I don't always give you the hard ones, but I just want to, today we're just doing an overview. We're going to do a lot of these in math, but I just wanted to start with you today. Okay, so does that help for Cornell? Is there any way you see C2? And I know, just put it down, Cornell, if you don't see it still. Because I know in math, I got math certified 20 years ago. Oh, okay, Cornell's got it, yay. So in English, you don't have these epiphanies, but in math, you do. Okay, so we're going to move on. Oh no, I want to try a book one. So let's go to the book. So you grab your blue book, you're going to write right in this. And I'd like you to go to page 1230 and look at number 7. So if you would go to your blue book and go to 1230, number 7. It's the same kind of a problem. I'm so happy when and like I said, I'm a nurturing mom, so I'm not out with a whip. I'll be like when that girl got a 1470 on Friday and her mom texted me. It was like I was so happy. And the other boy told me he got a 740 English. So I'm like a coach. So I'm glad when you're honest and say, I don't get it. Because in math, it isn't always visible. So here we have the same kind of a problem. It's a number 7, so it's getting into the hard zone. And like I said, I can't give you baby problems through the whole course. So what we're trying to do here is we're solving for P. So this P has to stand alone. So this is this whole mess up here. That's going to be our A term. This whole mess is going to be our B term. And we want you to multiply by B and divide by A. And just put the answer in the chat room. And see, before, where you might have been lost on this question, now you can see how to do it. And so it's a bit of a struggle now, but it's all going to pay off when you get into the college of your dreams. So once you see the answer, just put that in the chat room. Put your answer in the chat room. Put A, B, C, or D in the chat room. We make all our mistakes here. It is hard to see things sometimes in math. Like I could not see the theory of relativity if they locked me in a room with a professor for 50 years probably. So I get it. So we just want, and we do College Board books from the book because that's the real deal. This is what they say is going to be on the test. Oh, so CJ and Cornell already got it. Just waiting for Isaac. Good job, guys. Oh, and Isaac sees it too. That's awesome. Hallelujah. So if you get, we're going to be working more on these variables a little bit later. So let's go to, we took a lot of time, like hundreds of hours developing this packet. And like, I have math and English certification, which is weird. Okay, let's look at number 3. In the system of equations above, which value of C would result in infinitely many solutions? And I had a couple kids that just took the test and they had no clue how to do this because you can't, we're going to do systems on Thursday, but you can't actually solve for A and B. But here's the goal. Infinitely many solutions is the same line. So in other words, this line is the same as this line. They're just, this line has sunglasses. It's traveling incognito. And you can see what happened. They multiplied everything by 3. So 48 times 3 So the answer is 144. So this might be confusing, and there was a couple, this one student told me on the October test, they love these kind because a lot of kids will be clueless. But if you are accustomed to because you probably didn't get a question like this in your math class. So my job is to sort of show you what you're going to face. So does everybody see you're multiplying by 3 to get the same line? So if you see 3, just put that in the chat room or put a question mark. Because like I said, we're a small group and we have Brooke, our princess, is coming on to watch this online after because she had an emergency today. So Cornell sees it, CJ sees it, and we're just waiting for Isaac. So you can sort of see you're just multiplying this by 3. Oh, and Isaac sees it too. Yay. And so the student that had this on his test didn't have a clue how to know how to do it because he hadn't taken our course yet. So let's go to try one in the book. So page 612. Like I said, if you've had algebra, you're okay with this, but you probably, even taking Algebra 2, you never saw a question like this. So we're going to 612. So I'm sort of confirming to you that you'd see one on the test like this, and we're doing number 33. So we have x plus 2y is 10. And then we have 3x plus 6y is c. And it's the same line. So they told us it's the same line. But it's hard because we have to come up with an integer. We have to come up with a number that we're going to put in this line. But you can see pretty easy, what are we multiplying by here? And what do we have to multiply by 10 by? So if you see this, just put your number that you get in the chat room. And we make all our mistakes here. Like, I took a lot of math classes and where I was totally confused. So I just want to know, what integer would you put? They tell you that there's the same line, and you can't really get x and y individually. So you really wouldn't know how to get c. Oh, Isaac got it. Wait, they all 3 got it. Wow, I was sleeping at the wheel and you all got it. Great job. And that was a number 33. So that's almost the end of the test. So that's a pretty hard one. But now it'll be a piece of cake. So let's go to the next page. And like I said, today's an overview as far as the orientation is. So this is all the stuff you have to know. Not to worry, our packets cover it. It's only 9 packets. And a little bit of mental, what would you call it? Mental work to master it. Because we have to do percents and ratios, especially some harder ones. You don't need statistics, but you have to know how to analyze standard deviation and margin of error, and we're going to help you with that. But on the graphs, the hardest thing is to read it carefully, the graph carefully, because they try to stump you in the question. So the circle graph above shows the proportion of pets per household surveyed. If 800 households were surveyed, how many households had 2 or fewer? So a lot of kids would say, oh, the 2 pets, that's the 0.16 times 800. But we have to worry about even fewer pets. So we have to do the 1 pet, which is the polka dot. And we have to do the 0 pets, which is the 0.18. So that'll be 0.77 times 800 households, which would give us 616 pets. or how many households. So if you see one, just put a C1 in the chat room and we can move on. But it's a little notice to read carefully because they do try to trip you up. So I just want to be sure you see number 1. It's just an admonition, and you can write all over your tests, like when you take your practice tests, you can take them here. So Isaac's good, great job, Isaac. So we're trying, if you see one, just put that in the chat room. If you have a question, just put it in and I'll try to address it. You want 2 or fewer. So you want 2, 1, and 0 pets. Yes, CJ, this would be part of the calculator. They wouldn't expect you to do this without a calculator. Good question. Okay, Cornell sees it. Okay, great, and CJ sees it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Like I said, you can do this in your pajamas. Okay, let's look at this one. Each point, and I know it works because the girl that wanted a 1400, and I never thought she would get it, and she got a 1470 on Friday. She got her scores. So I know this works. Each point in the scatter plot above represents a different person's systolic and diastolic blood pressure. So you have 2 blood pressures. What fraction had a systolic pressure over 140? So I'm going to draw a line at 140 and over 90 of mercury, or both. So if I count these, oops, I don't want to, okay, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I don't count this one twice because it says or both. So that would be 6 out of 16, and I might panic a bit and say that answer isn't there, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, you just reduce it, and you will get 3/8. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So if you see 2, so I know you're all along with me, just put C2. And that was a good question. They won't ask you to do very hard. Oh, so everybody's good. I'll wait for Isaac. Does Isaac see it? Okay, great. You guys are all spread apart over the city. Isaac's in Bethel. CJ's in Mount Lebanon, and Cornell is sort of in the city. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be doing a statistics lesson, and they're going to ask you on mean, median, and mode, which you've had your whole life. And also on standard deviation, not to worry, I'm going to explain it. And also margin of error, I'm going to explain it. And missing average problems. But anyway, this is just a median one. So when you were in middle school, they would have you write all these out. Because if the teacher keeps the kids busy, the kids aren't keeping the teacher busy. So you would write out like 530s. This is hard surface to write on because it's vertical. So it's not like I'm writing on a flat surface. And then you would write 631s. And that's okay. You'll get the right answer. But this is sort of a time advantage. You could write 530s. And then you have 631s. And then you have 532s. And then you have 833s. And then you have 634s. And 136. And then with this, what I could do, I saved myself writing out all these terms. I have 5 plus 6, that's 11, plus 5. I have 16 to get me right here. And then I have 1 plus 6 plus 8. I have 15 to give me here. And so if you have an odd number of terms, the median is always going to be the middle term. And so our answer is going to be 32. So you can just put see the trick or a question mark. I mean, obviously you could write all these numbers out and then cross them off. But again, I'm trying to make your analysis a little speedier by using some tricks. And so if you see the trick, that all you're doing is you're counting, like this is 5, 6 of these guys, and 532. So to get to this point is 16. To get to this point is 15. And so the middle number has to be 32. So I'm looking for, okay, so Isaac, I didn't explain it real well. Okay, let me go through it again, Isaac. So I could write out, this is going to take me, you'll still get the right answer. Do you see how this is a little time consuming? That's all I'm trying to do is, because if you can get a lot of questions in a quicker manner, you have more time in the bank for the harder ones. And so then I have 631s. And you did this probably a lot in 6th grade, but not so much in high school. And 532s. Eight 33s, a whole lot of 33s. I'm glad you guys are honest with me when you don't see it. I really am. I appreciate that so much.
Let me move it down a little bit, see some room.
That's okay, yeah.
You get 6 of those?
No. And then I have 1 36.
You got 7 now.
Oh, yeah, I'll erase him. Okay, so now if I go all the way to here, I'll have, this probably makes it more visible. I'll have 5, 6, and then 532s. So I know my middle number is going to be 32. If I go this way and I count them all up, I'll get 15 to this point.
And there's 31 total, so.
And there's 31 total.
The middle.
So the middle, like if you have these numbers, the middle number has to be your median if you have an odd number. So my odd number here is going to be 32. So the trick is to sort of maybe truncate. You can do it this way and you'll still get the right answer. So if you see how to get the right answer either way, just say C3. And again, we're just doing an overview. So, okay, so Isaac's got it, and CJ and Cornell, you're good with this one? Okay, good. It's just a little trick. So the next page we're just going to skip because it just lists all the stuff you need to know. And we're going to be doing the quadratic equation because they put that usually just one question on the test. But obviously we want you to get ready for that. Okay, so let's look at this one. This is a function. So there's about 80 points on the test on functions. And 10 years ago, there were none. So I just want to get you all strong in math. So here, for what values of x does f of x equal 10? So the 10, do you see, goes in for the f of x. And that's just what I want to clarify here. If they said f of 10, I'd put the 10 in for x, but they don't ask for that. So then I just have to do a little algebra, add 5. And I'm just going to multiply by the reciprocal here. And so I'm going to get x is 25. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So if you see 1 and you know how to do, that's just an alert to me that you know how to do functions. So I just want to, I'm just sort of trying to get your math background here. So if you see 1, just put that in the chat room. Like I said, around 3:30, we're going to give you a break that you can go get a snack and use the restroom. So I just need a C1 in the chat room. Okay, CJ's good. Okay, now this is a composite function. And I don't know if, like I said, we have 3 different math curriculums, and once Brooke gets on board, that'll be another math curriculum. So we're doing
Question.
Oh, a question. How did you get 25 from 50? Good question. Okay. So I put 10 in, Cornell, for f of x. So then, if I use, please, excuse my Darren silly, I'm going to add 5 to this side and 5 to this side. That will give me 15 equals 3/5 x. So I can multiply by the reciprocal here. And so 5 times 5 is 25, which is x. So basically, I just added the 5, and I got 15. And obviously, I mean, 3/5 is 0.6. I could have used a calculator, but I just decided to use the reciprocal. So 3, that's 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So if you've got it, Cornell, just let me know. We're just waiting. Like I said, I totally get this because not everybody sees everything in math in the same time frame. It's like you have to have an epiphany. Okay, so he's good. I'm so glad you guys are honest with me, because now we can really go on and get a lot of points. Okay, so I don't know if you've had composite functions or not. So basically what we're going to do is put the 4 in for the g function, and that'll give us 4 squared is 16. And then I put the g function in for h. And so that will give me 12. So again, if you've never, you can put in the chat room, never had this. Because like I said, once Brooke is on, we have 4 different school districts, whole bunch of math teachers. But if you see 2, can you let me know? If you haven't had composite functions, it's not that bad because you can learn it. You just put the 4 into the first function and then put whatever you get, which we got 16, into the h function. So if you see 2, just let me know in the chat room. So CJ's okay. If you've never had this, let me know, because
Maybe Algebra 2.
I don't know, it's probably in Algebra 2, but if you haven't had it, it's okay, because you put the 4 in for x, and then you put that into the next function.
Just always work inside out.
Yeah, inside out. So if you've never had this, so we have CJ and Cornell. How about you, Isaac? Do you see this? Yeah, it's probably an Algebra 2 thing. And like I said, I'm just trying to get you an overview today of what they can test on. Now, I'm moving into some of the hard ones, I agree. So let's see if Isaac's got it. And if you've never had this, just tell me, because it's not your fault. Oh, he's good. Okay. Now they have these on the test, and usually it's a hard one, but it's really easy to see. So if you have 5 distinct zeros, that means it crosses the x-axis 5 times. And even though this is a really hard one, look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the answer has to be A. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Distinct means different, according to what they say. So our answer is going to be A. So if you see 3, just let me know. And like I said, usually this is a pretty hard one, but it's just knowing what to look for. Okay, so Isaac's great on that one. Great. And like I said, your math teacher might not have tested you on a question exactly like this, but now it'll be a piece of cake on the test. CJ's good. And we'll just wait for Cornell. Oh, and Cornell's good. Now this one is pretty wicked. Okay, you might have learned this as polynomial long division or synthetic division, and I don't know if you've had it. If not, it's not hard to learn. So basically, they're saying, just keep an open mind. 4x minus 2, and we're dividing this by x plus 3. So it's sort of like the old days when you did long division in elementary school. 4 would go into 6 one time, and then you multiply. So here, they just complicate it with a variable. So x plus 3 would go 4 times. 4 times x would be 4x plus 12. And then notice what I have to do here. I have to subtract this product. So I always parentheses protect it so that you can sort of see what's going on, and then we get a minus 14. And just like here, I would put the 2 over the 4. Here I'm going to put the minus 14 over x plus 3. And so I'm going to get answer choice D. So I expect some question marks on this one. So if you have a question, if you see it, just say C4. Maybe your teacher stressed this or another teacher didn't. So just, we need a C4 or a question mark if you've never ever had this before. So Isaac's okay with it. That's great. We got to get everybody on board. Okay, so Cornell's not had this. And let me check on Isaac's had it. What about you, CJ? Have you seen this before?
You better explain it.
Okay, so CJ hasn't seen this either. Do you have one from the book?
written down.
I know there's a couple.
I mean, you might find it faster than me.
No, I won't find it faster than you. But anyway, okay, let me go through it very slowly. Because you might get one of these and you'd have a great life if you didn't solve it. But like I said, today I'm trying to expose you to a lot of different stuff. I don't want to waste any of your time. And so, yeah, we are going to want to book one because one.
Hey, I found one.
Okay.
860, number 12.
Okay. We're not going to do that right yet. I want to do this one again.
Okay.
You could always pick a number and do this, but I want you to see it. Okay.
Question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good, CJ. Thank you. Okay, so let's start from the scratch, okay? So if I have, going back to grade school days, if I have 4 goes into 6, I would say it goes 1 time. 1 times 4 is 4. I have 2 as a remainder, and so then I bring up the remainder and put it over the divisor, and I would get 1 2/4. So that's sort of a basis. So if I have 4x minus 2, and I'm dividing by x plus 3, then x would go into 4x 4 times. And we're going to do a lot more of these in the class, but I just, like I said, forage on here. So we're going, like I would multiply 1 times 4. Here I'm going to multiply 4 times x plus 3. So I'm going to get 4x plus 12. And
that's
then
the most important part, distributing the minus sign.
Okay, so I'm subtracting this.
The whole thing.
Yeah, like I would subtract the 4. And so why I put this in parentheses is I don't want to forget to distribute this because they'll have that as a wrong answer. So now I'm subtracting these. And I like to just put that parentheses out there at first. Then these are additive inverses, so they go away. I get 0. But then -2 minus 12 more would give me a -14. And they're not going to make these super hard. So I know that's the remainder, and I'm going to put this over x plus 3. And so my answer is going to be D. Okay, so Isaac was okay. So how are we coming, CJ? Still confused, and also Cornell. Any better? You could say got it or another question mark, because we're going to try a book one. Again, I'm developing your frontal lobes for your wonderful future. Okay, so Cornell's good now. CJ, are you okay? I just put that negative sign out there like you would do here, but I did it among the whole thing. Okay, so CJ's good. So let's try a book one just to, okay, so what page was it, Jim?
I think it was 860. So I said?
860, number 12, yeah. Let's just try one. And you can see it's a number 12. It's pretty hard. And I'm not sure what body of knowledge they expect you to have for this, but since they put it in their book, you could very well have one. So let's look at this one and do one more. And if you want to, you can just raise ahead of me, but I'm going to do it here. We have 4x squared plus 6x. And then we're dividing this by 4x plus 2. Okay, so that means 4x goes into 4x squared, just x, because I need it. And you can sort of look at the answer choices to help you. They all have an x. So then I'm going to multiply x times 4x plus 2. That's going to give me 4x squared plus 2x. And then in answer to CJ's question, I'm going to subtract the whole thing. And so I don't make a mistake, because they'll catch me with a mistake. I'm going to distribute this negative sign, but I also have to distribute it here. And that's the tricky part. So 6x minus 2x will give me 4x. Now I can see 4x goes into 4x just one time. And 1 times 4x plus 2. This would be an understood 0. But then I have to subtract the whole thing. See, and that's why this is a little tricky. So this would be a negative and a negative. And I would get negative 2 over 4x plus 2. Answer choice D. So just let me know if you see 12 in the book. And I'll give you a minute to process it. Yeah. So it is a little hard. I am taking you up a level, and I don't mean to. I mean, if I just gave you baby problems, it would be, we wouldn't get the growth that we need. So it's sort of like I'm like the Peloton math person. So we're doing some harder math here. But you saw the one in the packet. So Cornell's got it now. Great job. See, if you're not learning, okay, so CJ is still confused. That's okay.
That's a harder one too.
Yeah, this
multiple
is hard.
Steps.
Multiple steps.
It's just what the first one I found.
And just look for Isaac. Isaac is okay. So CJ, let me do this again. So here we have my initial problem. And I understand totally what it's like to be confused in math, because like I said, and then I would have professors from different countries, and that made it even worse. Okay, so we have 4x going into 4x squared. So that would be x, because then if I do x times 4x plus 2, I would get 4x squared plus 2x, which I'll put here. And this is a little bit of the confusing part, because I have to subtract this whole thing like I did with the 4 and the 6. I'm going to distribute the negative sign. And so then 6x, this will just be a 0.
Get rid of the sign up front.
What?
You get rid of that. No,
Yeah,
I'll get rid of it. Yeah.
I'll get rid of that. Yeah. So then 6 minus 2 is 4x. Okay, so 4x goes into 4x just one time. So I multiply, and I'll have 1 times 4x plus 2. And that'll give me 4x plus 2. So I'm going to put that in here.
Just put under it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is like a 0. So I'm going to put the 4x plus 2 under it. Now I'm going to subtract this. So I have to distribute the negative sign. Okay, and so we're going to get a negative 2.
Yeah,
That's, oh, you're good? Okay, woohoo! Sorry, I know it's hard to slug through these. We're going to do more of this. This is just an overview. So the next part is a little bit of the geometry that you have to know, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to worry about some problems. Now this one, I don't know why Jimmy made this so hard. I'm mad at my son right now because he gave you up. This is a hard one. They're both hard. but then we're going to be done, and I'm going to turn you over to him for reading, and then we'll take a break. So, when they say figure not drawn to scale, you can't eyeball it. But basically, you sort of should see, and so the geometry on the test, they're just sort of sprinkled in. Maybe 6 or 7 questions. So it's not like the bulk of the test. But this triangle BDE is similar to BAC. You don't have to prove it or anything. And we know tangent, according to SOHCAHTOA, and I know, Brooke, you're watching this later, tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent because it's the last part of SOHCAHTOA. So we have the tangent of B is going to be opposite over adjacent, and it's 3/4. We know they give us 3/4. So that's going to equal 6 over something. And we can sort of see we're just multiplying by 2. And so this should be an 8. We're going to be going over 3, 4, 5 triangles. So this would be a 6, 8, 10 triangle. Okay, so this triangle here is a 6, 8, 10. This would be a hard one in the end zone. Okay, CJ, I'm glad you got that. So now we're multiplying by 3. The bigger triangle, triangle ABC, is 3 of whatever BDE is. I know my face is up here, so I don't want to confuse anybody. So if this is 3, this whole thing up here would be 30, and this thing down here would be 24. And so 24 minus 8 would be 16 for my answer. Now, I didn't expect you to get this on the first run. So if we only have one more problem after this. So if you see one, just let me know or put a question mark. And I expect maybe everybody's going to put a question mark. Okay, so Isaac is a question mark. And what about CJ and Cornell? CJ is a question mark. See, Jimmy,
ask them if they've seen 3, 4, 5 triangles before. Maybe.
I'm sure they've seen 3, 4, 5 triangles before. Everybody's lost. Oh, great. Thanks to you. Jimmy was the one that created these packets. But there was a question like this on the SAT.
We just have to do what they do, and they put them on like this.
So they put them on like this. So anyway, let's erase everything and start from scratch. We're all lost together. It's okay. So if you can sort, so the tangent of B, this angle, is 3 over 4, which is opposite over adjacent. So 3 over 4 would equal 6 over, we don't know what the adjacent one is, but I could either cross multiply and see 3a is 24, so a is 8. So this little BE guy is 8. And if we did, we would have a 6, 8, 10 triangle because it's a multiple of 3, 4, 5. Or I could use the Pythagorean theorem. So first let me see, does everybody see a is 8? I mean, this BE is 8. I'm trying to do this piecemeal because the harder geometry, I have to sort of, is multiple step. This was like the last question on the test. And I don't do this to dishearten you. I do this to show you that you can do it. So is everybody okay with BE is 8? Just put okay 8 if I've got everybody to the 8 point. Because you're just doing tangent is 3/4, which is going to be 6 over BE, which is 8. Where did I get the 6 from? Isaac says, it's right here. It's the opposite. Good question. Opposite over the adjacent. See, and now that we're in this little friendly setting, you're not competing with 25 other kids. So it's opposite over the adjacent. 3/4 is 6 over 8. Okay, so CJ's okay. Let's see, Cornell, are you okay with this BE being 8 or still not sure? Just put an okay 8 or another question mark and I'll go through it again. Because on the multiple geometry ones, you just fill in what you know and then you go from there. And it's probably been a while since you've had geometry. So I'm just waiting for, okay, so Cornell's okay with the 8. Okay, now, okay, so I got that part because they gave me the tangents so I could get that little part. Now, I talked about these triangles being similar. So this one is angle. Remember that craziness. But anyway, because they share this B, these are both right angles, and this they have the similar A. So we can see the bigger triangle. So similar triangles have the same ratio, but not the same shape. The same shape, but not the same size, not the same numbers. So we can do 6. Its buddy over here is 18. As what's 8 buddies going to be? 8 buddies going to be 24. And if we needed it, the big hypotenuse on the big triangle would be 30, but we don't need that. Okay, so is everybody okay that BC is going to be 24? Just put okay, okay 24, I guess. I'm just trying to let you see that we jumped to this being 24.
So you just multiplied every side of the small triangle by 3.
Yeah, I multiplied every side of this triangle by 3. So this was 18, this was 30. So the whole BC is 24. Okay, so Cornell is okay with 24, and so is CJ. And Isaac, are you okay with 24? And then all I have to do, and then you put a circle problem. I can't forgive my son right now because he's not teaching this. Okay, so Isaac, are you okay that this whole BC is 24?
Question.
Okay, so Isaac still has a question. Okay, so what I did, you got that this was 8. I know we're stretching your brains, but if you're going to get a high score, we got to stretch your brains a little. So this triangle is similar to this one. So all I'm doing is multiplying everything through by 3. So 6 times 3, this whole length would be 18. So if this little BE is 8, because I got that just a minute ago, then the whole BC would be 24. And then all I have to do to get EC is 24 minus 8, so this has to be 16. And you might say, Mrs. Hessler, what was Jim drinking? Because this part is a lot shorter than this part, but he put a disclaimer on to cover his back that the whole thing was 24. So, if you see the ultimate answer is 16, just put, I see that it's 16. If you're still confused, Isaac, we'll go back. But maybe putting it on here, and again, it is confused. Most of the geometry will be drawn to scale. This one is not drawn to scale because my son is evil, like the College Board is evil. And so you might say, you might question yourself, how is this 16 when this is 8? But he covered his back with this non-rounded scale. So Cornell actually sees it. Hallelujah. Okay, let's worry about Isaac and CJ. Does everybody see the ultimate answer is, oh, Isaac's got it now. Thank you very much. And then CJ, okay, great. See, I got everybody on board. I'm glad we're this nice little family because I can keep you all going. Now, this one is nasty. Oh, no, this one isn't so bad. So I don't know if you've had i's in your math class. An I is the square root of -1, and I squared is a -1. So now we're going to FOIL this. First, outer, inner, last. It's the difference of two squares. So we're going to get 9 minus 12i plus 12i. Then the last part is minus 16i squared. So I'm sort of assuming that you've all had little i's. If you haven't, that's okay. And Brooke, if you're watching later, it's okay too. So these will be additive inverses. So you're basically going to get 9 minus 16i squared. I squared is a -1. So that'll give us 9 minus a -16, which will give us 9 plus 16, which is 25. And again, I'm sort of glad in a way we're doing this overview because you're developing today. We're almost, I think we'll have a break before we go to you, Jim.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so if you see 2, just let me know. Just put a C2 in here. Or tell me I've never had this. Okay, so Isaac has apparently had this, which is great. Because we're just teaching the math you need on the SAT. And for some of you, okay, so everybody's had this. Great. Okay, now this is the big last one that Jimmy left for me. Okay, so there's usually one of these on every test. And they don't give you this formula. We're going to do a whole packet on circles. So, but he wasn't nice to me. So anyway, what we have to do here is we have to complete the square. Let me first give you the formula. This is my exit one. And then we'll give you a break. So this is actually x, this is the formula, minus h squared plus y minus k squared is r squared. It's the circle on a coordinate plane.
What's the center?
The center is hk, and the radius is obviously r. Okay, so I don't know if you ever had that formula, but they put one of these on every test. We're going to do a lot of practice with this later, but I don't know, he's putting me in with the dinosaur or bear or something right away here. So we have to complete this square, so I'm going to divide that by 2. So this will actually be x minus 3 squared. Then I divide this by 2 if you've had completing by the square. Y, and this would be a hard one. Okay, now what happens is when I FOIL this, I'm going to get x squared plus minus 6x, which is what I want. Notice up here. Plus 9 plus y squared minus 8y plus 16. Now, since I added, Since I added a 9 and a 16 here, I have to add a 9 and a 16 here. If I, it's like a teeter-totter. If I added it to this side to keep it balanced, I have to add it to this side. So when I add these up, I'm going to get 64 equals r squared. So r is going to be 8. Okay, I don't suspect anybody sees this, but if you've had some experience,
maybe just ask them if they've seen that formula before even.
Yeah,
it's on every test lately.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
Have you seen this? So I've seen this or I haven't seen this. But we're going to go in depth in this, but I'm just about to give you a break. So if you can say you've seen this or you haven't seen this, just let me know. You can even put C3 if you've got it, but if you don't have it, the one thing great about you gentlemen is you have, okay, so Cornell's never seen this. You've got integrity, you're very honest. So CJ, have you ever seen this before? Okay, so CJ hasn't seen it too.
This is the hardest thing. Well, it's like for kids who are fighting over 800s or math scores or whatever.
Yeah, you can miss this one and still get a decent score, but my job is to show you everything you're going to see on the test. Okay, so all three of you haven't seen this.
That's just a preview of the circle lesson then to come.
Yeah, so if I'm going to do it a little quickly here. So if I have, it's okay, because we're going to do this. Now I know that we have to do this in the circle lesson in depth. But the center of this circle is going to be 3, 4. And then the radius is going to go out 8. So not to worry about this, because we know when we come to the circle lesson, we're going to expose you to this. That's one reason I wanted to do these hard ones, because I know I got to get all three of you up to speed.
The formula is a little tricky to remember, and then not everyone's completed the square a ton of times.
Yeah. So not to worry, we're going to go through this part. I guess we're okay except this one question. So let's take a break.
That's pretty good, though.
That's pretty good, yeah, because we stretch you a lot, so you need a refreshment. So be back. What time is it?
It's 3:30 now, so whatever you think.
What do you think? 3:38?
Sure.
Okay. So you'll be an expert on the circle problem, I promise you, because we're not letting you out of our class without knowing this. So take a break. Tell your parents we beat on you, and get yourself a drink and use the restroom, and we'll be back with some verbal at 3:38. Maybe it is good you put it on there. I'm wondering when you're going to be able to get the October test, because
I'll start looking.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 3:38 now, so we should be back from our break. So my name is Mr. Hessler. As I believe my mother mentioned, I have a degree in English from Penn State University, so we're going to talk about the English portion of the SAT now. Cornell's back, CJ's back. So we're going to start with the reading test. So find this section. All right, as everyone's coming back from the break, we'll just pop right into this reading section. So this is always the first section of the SAT. They always start with the reading test. It's just reading comprehension. So they give you 65 minutes to complete it, and there are 52 questions total. So they give you 4 single passages and 1 pair of passages on a similar topic, and all of the passages are roughly equal in length. They're 500 to 750 words per passage or pair of passages. And the reading topics are US and world literature, history and social studies, and also science. Mainly they're testing you on reading comprehension. I like to say for the SAT reading test, the answers are staring at you from the page. The answers are there somewhere. Did you understand the text as it was presented to you? Can you answer some simple questions about it? That's all they're really testing you on for the most part. Mainly it's reading comprehension. They will test you a little bit on your knowledge of vocabulary, but mainly it's just reading comprehension. Did you understand the text? Did you interpret it correctly? Can you answer a few questions about it? Isaac's back as well. Okay, I'm Mr. Hessler, by the way. So I teach English. We're going to talk about the English that they test you on for the reading. They're going to test you on determining explicit or implicit meanings from the text, citing textual evidence. They'll expect you to understand central ideas, main ideas, and themes, understand logical relationships within the text. They expect you to be able to interpret words in context. They might present some vocabulary questions. They expect you to analyze word choice, analyze text structure, analyze points of view, analyze purpose, analyze arguments, and also analyze quantitative information. Basically, they could throw in a chart or a graph, and they can ask you some questions about it. They're not going to ask you to determine the slope of a graph, but they'll ask you an English question about it. Can you compare the graph to the text? Can you make the text reflect what the graph says? That's all they really do, basically, if you see a chart or a graph on the English section. So we'll look at the U.S. founding documents in the Great Global Conversation. So this is under that topic, the history and social studies part of the reading test. They're calling this the U.S. founding documents and the Great Global Conversation, which is a very long-winded title. Really, it's just civics. I'm not sure why they chose this long title instead of just calling it civics. They could prevent you with something from a founding father, a United States founding father, so something written by Hamilton or Adams, any of those people. But it may also be a later work. They say that any later work that pertains to democracy, liberty, these quote-unquote American ideals, they say that these authors, these later authors, would be in conversation with the founding fathers, if that makes any sense at all. But that's just sort of where they're coming from with this title. So you may get a founding document, so something like the Declaration or the Constitution, maybe the Bill of Rights from the Constitution. But you may get a later work. You might get something that's in conversation with these founding fathers. So, for example, maybe you'll get something by Lincoln. He was not a founding father, but maybe you'll get the Gettysburg Address. Or maybe they'll give you something by Dr. King, maybe the letter from a Birmingham jail or the I Have a Dream speech. It's not necessarily from a founding father. That's all I'm trying to say. It's gonna pertain to civics, and it should be engaged with issues and ideals at the heart of American civic life. So we're going to take a look at one. So here we have our global conversation passage on the next page. And this one is by Samuel Adams, and he most certainly was a founding father. And notice that this is about half the size of a real one. Just because today is more of an overview, this is about half the length of a real SAT reading passage. And it also has half as many questions. A real SAT reading passage would have 10 or 11 questions to accompany it. And we only have 5 here, but today is more of an overview for the English. We're just trying to get a broad picture, broad strokes, just sort of see what this test is all about. So I'm gonna have you read this portion of the report of the Committee of Correspondence to the Boston Town Meeting. So read this document that was produced by Samuel Adams, and see if you can answer the 5 questions that go along with it below. You can refer back to the text as you go. They always provide you line numbers, and they usually in the question will tell you what line to refer to, which is nice. Not always, but sometimes they do that. So take about 5 minutes, everyone, and just put done or finished in the chat room once you have tried these 5. Just give them a shot. See if you can answer these 5 questions. And try these SAT questions. Just put done or finished in the chat room. I'll give you a few minutes to complete this, and we'll go over these together. CJ's done. Cornell's also finished. Okay, Isaac's done as well. Let's go over these then. So we're going to start with the first question. And it looks like it's a main idea question. And the way I can tell are these words primary purpose. And if any of you have a question at all, just put it in the chat room. I'm going to monitor the chat room as we go over these to try to keep an eye on it. But if you have any questions at all, just put them into the chat room. But if you see primary purpose, just think main idea. They're looking for a main idea. And I said earlier, they're going to test you on the main ideas right here. So this is definitely something that you'll see. So what's the main idea of this passage? Does it A, establish the Constitution of the United States? Does it rationalize the actions of the British Parliament? Does it demand a reaction to the Boston Massacre or elaborate the rights of the colonists? So let's just start going through them. I'm going to start with answer choice A. Is there anything in this document that seems to establish the Constitution of the United States? I don't believe so. It's only 1772. I don't feel that that is what this document is doing at all, so I'm going to cross it out. That is not the main idea of this passage. Let's look at answer choice B. Does the document rationalize the actions of the British Parliament? Could we say that anything in this document is pro-British? Is anything in this document appear to be pro-British? I don't think so. I'm going to cross it off. It seems to be about the colonists, mainly. Does it demand a reaction to the Boston Massacre? I don't think so. I didn't see any of that content in the passage. And also, it's only 1772, so the Boston Massacre has not happened yet. So we can safely cross off C. Really, the main idea here is just that this passage elaborates the rights of the colonists according to Adams, as Samuel Adams sees them. That's all it does. So they will test you on main ideas versus details. Question 2 says, as used in line 16, the word seated most nearly means what? So this is a vocabulary question. This is how they test vocab. And I would like to give you a strategy here. It's kind of hard to write on this tablet. But the strategy is read the words back into the sentence. So let's try it. I'm going to read the word seated. I'm going to sub in. Maybe I'll read it as written first, but then I'm going to try, in place of the word seated, I'm just going to read the word borrowed. Then I'll try relinquished. And quickly, you'll realize that you have 3 gibberish sentences and 1 sentence that makes perfect sense. That's the right answer choice. So let's try this strategy. Let's read the words back in. I'm going to read it as written first. So here's line 16. Here's our word seated. So here is the sentence as written. It says, every natural right, not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact necessarily ceded, remains. So we have to figure out what this verb means, to cede something. We'll have to figure it out. But I'm going to try to read the word borrowed back in the sentence. Let's see if it makes any sense at all. If it doesn't, if it's gibberish, we can just cross it off. I'm going to try it. Every natural right, not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact necessarily borrowed, remains. And that doesn't make any sense. So to cede something must not mean to borrow it, because I just tried it and I got a gibberish sentence. I'm going to try to determine if to cede something means to relinquish it, to give it up. Let's try B. I'm just going to read it back in the sentence. Every natural right, not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact, necessarily relinquished remains. And that does make sense. So to cede something may mean to relinquish it. It does mean to relinquish it. I just tried it, and it does make sense. If I tried appropriated or reserved, if I read either of these words back in the sentence, you would get a gibberish sentence, a nonsense sentence, right? So we're just going to cross them off. So to cede something means to give it up, means to relinquish it. This is how they test vocabulary. They always test it in context. They give you a sentence and they just ask you for a similar word. So remember to read the words back into the sentence. It's a good strategy. It's an effective strategy. It takes just mere seconds, and it's a good way to come to the right answer for that type of question. I'm going to read the next question, question 3. All right, here's question 3. It says, Adams expressly indicates in the passage that all men have which of the following rights? Is it the right to the pursuit of happiness, the right to enter into a social contract, the right to a freedom of speech, and a right to mandate the state religion? So we're just going to go through some of these answer choices, and if you have any questions at all, just put them in the chat room. I will address them. I am monitoring it as we go. But I want to indicate something before we even get too far into this question, and that is this. This word expressly is important. So this is, because of course Adams would agree that you have rights that he does not expressly enumerate, that he does not specifically enumerate. But this is one he specifically mentions. He expressly mentions it within the passage. So even though Adams would, I'm sure, agree that you have a right to a freedom of speech, it's not in the passage. But he does mention one of these. Is it the pursuit of happiness? Let's look at the passage. Well, according to Adams, it's a right to life, liberty, and property. So that pursuit of happiness, that's a different document. That's not this document. Adams believes in life, liberty, property. I think they're trying to trick you there with a similar document. So we already have it down to 2 answer choices. Do we have the right as colonists to enter into a social contract, according to Adams, or do we have a right to mandate the state religion? And this was a tricky question because he does talk about religion. He mentions it right over here. So all colonists have a right peaceably and quietly to worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience. That's according to Adams. But what's a mandate? If I mandate something, I require it. We cannot require a particular religion in order to be a citizen of this country. It's just incorrect. It's wrong. It contradicts the founding fathers at every level. They would not agree with D, this idea that we can mandate or establish a state religion. They believed in the freedom of religion. But he does expressly mention that the colonists have this right to enter into a social contract with one another if they so desire. And now we have to find the evidence. So for question 4, we have to go back and find the evidence for question 3, which is kind of a tricky question. They have 2 of these per passage approximately. They always give you these evidence questions because basically they're testing your ability to cite sources. If you were writing, imagine if you're writing an essay about Adams in this committee of correspondence to the Boston Town Meeting. And imagine you wrote something like this in your essay. Adams indicates that all men have the right to enter into a social contract, period. Could you just put a period there? Of course not. You would have to cite your evidence. You would have to cite where you found that within the document, which is all they're asking you to do here. So where does Adam mention that the colonists have this right, this natural right to enter into contracts with one another? It's right here in lines 10 through 14. I will read the lines so you can see this is where he mentions that the colonists have this right to enter into contracts with one another. When men enter into society, it is by voluntary consent, and they have a right to demand and insist upon the performance of such conditions and previous limitations as form an equitable original compact. Note this word compact. A compact is a contract. It's the same exact thing. A compact is a contract. So if all the colonists have this right to enter into a social contract, well, that's a social compact. It's the same thing. So a compact is a contract. And I know, I apologize if my writing is kind of sloppy on this tablet. It's actually surprisingly difficult to write on glass, which I never knew until we started writing on these tablets. So let's go to 5. It says, in the passage, Adams expresses which, it's not like writing on a chalkboard for whatever reason. In the passage, Adams expresses which of the following with regard to natural laws and civil laws. So all we have to do is just reading comprehension. All we have to do is we just put on our thinking cap. Can we recall the part of the passage where Adams mentions the natural laws and the civil laws? Well, it's right here. There's your natural laws right there. So all positive and civil laws should conform as far as possible to the laws of natural reason and equity. So now we just need the best paraphrase of this statement. We just have to go through the answer choices. Now that we've found it within the text, here's where he mentions it. Can we come up with the closest approximation to this sentiment in an answer choice? That's all we're trying to do here. And this, it wouldn't be natural laws and civil laws govern different aspects of society. It's not A, but it's rather B. When possible, civil laws should comply with natural laws. That is the crux of his argument right here. All right, so that's just a real brief glimpse at what a reading comprehension passage looks like. It's half as long as a real one. Today's more of an overview. We don't have a ton of time today, so that's just an overview picture of what the reading comprehension looks like. You have an hour and 5 minutes to complete this whole section. They give you many, many passages. And did you understand the document? Can you answer a few short questions about the document? Can you cite some evidence if you had to? Like imagine if you were writing an essay or something. That's really the idea here for the reading section. So it's not too bad, mainly reading comprehension. They will test you a little bit on vocabulary as we've seen, but it's mainly just reading comprehension. Did you understand the source document? Can you answer some questions about it? So if there are no questions on this section, and I don't see any yet, and I know that I can already tell that this is a bright group, so I think I'm just going to keep moving along from the reading. We're going to move immediately to the writing section, which is the second section of the SAT. And mainly it's grammar. It's 80% grammar, I would estimate. About 20% of the test, they're testing you on conventions of style and English usage, composition. But mainly it's just grammar. They're testing you on sentence formation versus a fragment. Well, what's the difference? Every sentence expresses a complete thought. A fragment, by definition, does not. A sentence does. So that's just a grammar subject. But they'll also test you on usage content such as main ideas, revisions. They'll ask questions such as, oh, well, the author is considering removing sentence 2. Should he or she do this? Why or why not? But mainly it's grammar. They'll test you on subordination and coordination. So they will test you on clauses, relative clauses. They will test you on parallel structure, modifiers. They'll test you on shifts in verb, tense, mood, pronoun, person, and number. I think that the test is very pronoun heavy. They'll test you on pronoun antecedent agreement. So for example, every pronoun must agree with its antecedent in person, gender, and number. And we're going to review all these topics. If it's been a while since you've seen these in an English class, well, what's a pronoun? What's an antecedent? Well, for example, if I say he is Bob, our antecedent is Bob, and the pronoun is he. The pronoun just refers back to an antecedent. That's all that means. So they will test you on that. They will test you on possessive determiners. They will test you on frequently confused words, such as there, this contraction that you may have seen before, and also this plural possessive pronoun that you've probably seen. THERE is usually an adverb, but not always. So just commonly confused words. They'll test you on logical versus illogical comparisons. They'll test you on conventions of English punctuation. So semicolons, colons, commas, em dashes, things of that nature. They'll test you on idioms. They will also test you on. They may test your ability to analyze quantitative information. Again, they may throw in a chart or a graph. Can you compare the chart or the graph to the text? Can you make sure that the text reflects what the graph is saying? If not, can you modify the text to better reflect the data that's in the graph or the chart? That's all. You don't have to perform any math in this section. It's really just, can you interpret the graph in context of the passage? So we're going to look at an SAT writing passage now. If there are any questions, just put them in the chat room. But mainly they're testing you on grammar. It's pretty straightforward. Every now and then they'll test you on conventions of style and composition. The author's considering adding the following sentence. Should he or she do this here? Or something of that nature. So we're going to look at one just to get our feet wet. And today the English is just an overview. So this is half the size of a real one. A real one will be twice as long as this. A real passage would be, it looks like they're 400 to 450 words long. So this one's a little shorter today, just in the interest of time. And it's also shorter with the questions. There would actually be 11 questions for each one of these. Here we only have 5 questions. So this is a cut down one today, but just in the interest of time, we've decided to shorten this, as today is more of an overview for the English. So why don't you take a few minutes, try these questions. And I want to show you something here before you even jump in, because this confused me at first. These boxed numbers are the question numbers. What's confusing is later on in the second paragraph, we have some bracketed numbers. These bracketed numbers, all they did was sequence the sentences in this paragraph. We have the first one, the second one, the third one, etc. So they just numbered the sentences. So I just don't want you to be confused by those numbers. All they did was number the sentences in this paragraph. But these box numbers, like that's question 5 right there. The box numbers are your questions. And these other numbers, all they did was sequence these sentences for the second paragraph. So just thought I'd cover that real quickly, I should say. So why don't you try these 5 questions to the right and see if you can correct these sentences. Usually you have to change them. Every now and then the sentence was fine as it was written. Don't change it. But most of the time you will have to change these. So just try these 5 questions to the right as you're reading this passage to the left. Read about the cell biologists. And then just put done or finished in the chat room once you've had a chance to try all 5. And we'll go over it together. So I'll give you about 5 or so minutes to do that, maybe a little bit longer. We'll see how long this takes you guys. But just try this passage. Just put done or finished in the chat room once you've had a chance to try them all, and we'll go over them together. CJ's finished. Cornell's finished. Oh, Isaac's done as well. Okay, let's go over this. So let's look at the writing passage. So it looks like it starts with a vocab question. So just like they test you on vocabulary on the reading, they will also test your knowledge of vocabulary on the writing section. They test it in context. So we can read the words back in. It will work. But let's just start with answer choice A. Let's think about as written. Is this sentence correct? So in order to pursue a career in this field, cell biologists must be adept with modern technologies, such as data mining and imaging spectroscopy, in order to impact their research forward. Is impact the best word here? Is there perhaps a better choice? So, and this is a kind of a tricky one to start with, because certainly these researchers would want their research to have an impact. But the tricky thing here is the verb to impact only means to physically hit. So the automobile impacted the barricade or the median, whatever. It just means something physically hit something else. You cannot impact your research forward. It makes no sense. An impact is a physical collision between two entities. So we can't impact research forward. That doesn't make much sense. Would you want to dispel and disperse your research, maybe so it can't even be found? No, that makes no sense. Would you ever want to impede your own research? Obviously not. That makes no sense. It's your research. You would want to promote it, not impede it. You never want to shoot yourself in the foot. The best answer here would be propel. So I'm going to read it back in the sentence. Once you've picked one, always read it back in the sentence. So let's try it. So they must be adept with these technologies in order to propel their research forward. That makes much more sense. Research may be propelled forward, not impacted forward. So it just fits a little bit better. They like to pick what I've just been calling them near words. I'm not sure what anyone else is calling them, but I've just been calling them near words. They like to pick words that almost would make sense, but not quite. And that's all they're doing here. Propel fits much better. All right, let's look at the second question. It says, utilizing techniques found in other disciplines, such as programming and statistics, data must be extracted and analyzed by scientists for significant results. So this question, they're testing you on something called dangling a participle, which is an error you can make in English. So I'm going to give you some help here. I'm just going to highlight the participle first. So it's just a verb form. So utilizers, they utilize something. It's just our verb to utilize. The interesting thing is that as a participle, this verb, this word, it's actually a verbal, they call it. But anyway, it can modify something within the sentence, which is interesting. You can modify nouns in English with verbs, not just adjectives. You can modify nouns in a number of ways. So we are dangling the participle. It's not modifying the correct noun in our sentence, and it's just a proximity thing. It's much too close to the wrong noun in our sentence. Another way I can ask this, or another way I can explain this topic, would be to say this, just a simple question. Can data, which are numbers, can data utilize techniques found in other disciplines? And the answer is no. Numbers can't utilize anything. The only people in our sentence who could utilize anything are the right answer, C, the scientists. Scientists must be where data is. That's all that's happening here. So let's read the corrected sentence now and see if it makes more sense. It's not the data, it's the scientists. Utilizing techniques found in other disciplines, such as programming and statistics, scientists must extract and analyze their data for significant results. That also got rid of our passive voice too, which was nice. See how we had some passive voice in our sentence initially, and answer choice C corrected it. Typically, the active voice on the SAT is preferred. That's funny. I just used passive voice to talk about how active voice is preferred. Whoops. Well, anyway, let's just say that the College Board prefers active voice. There you go. There it is, an active voice. I don't know if you've seen this passive voice versus active voice today. I don't want to get into it today, but let's just keep going. So that's a question about dangling participles. The scientists are the utilizers, not the data. So not too bad yet. Let's look at 3. It looks like a question on transitional words and phrases. So is nevertheless the best transition here? We could change it to we have some other options they present us with. It says, nevertheless, collaboration between biomedical researchers and clinicians is vital to advancing new therapies that will improve patient care. So we actually haven't gone over this yet today, but this nevertheless is what they call an adversarial transition. It moves us into the opposite direction. But we don't really need to be moving in the opposite direction here. What would make more sense for our paragraph, for the logic of our paragraph, would just be an additionally. So not a nevertheless, but just additionally. I'm just giving you some more information. This is what they call an additive transition. This actually moves us in the same direction, not in the opposite direction that we would not expect. So this moves us in the expected direction. So additionally, collaboration between biomedical researchers and clinicians is vital to advancing new therapies that will improve patient care. For these reasons, they call that a causal transition or a logical transition, but that's 3 words when just a therefore or thus would suffice. But we don't need a logical transition here. But we're going to go over transitional words and phrases in another lesson. So don't worry if you've never seen these before. But for example, notwithstanding is another adversarial transition that would move us in the opposite direction. We're going to go over all those in another lesson, just in case it's been a while since you've seen transitions. Let's look at 4. So here is 4. And for number 4, I would also like to introduce you to a couple concepts. There are 2 ways we could approach question 4. We can consider wordiness, which I really do want to introduce sooner rather than later. Wordiness on the SAT. And I also want to address informal versus formal writing. So as far as wordiness is concerned, the concise answer choice is most often the right answer choice on the SAT. How many words do we have here at the end of our sentence? 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we have 4 additional words on our sentence that are not really doing anything for our sentence. Could we eliminate them without losing anything important from our sentence? And the answer is yes. We should delete these words because, according to the College Board, if you can express yourself clearly and cohesively, you should. The clear answer choice is probably the right answer choice. The succinct answer choice is the right answer choice. If it takes you 20 extra words to explain your meaning using flowery embellishment or something, redundancy, anything that would add additional length to your sentence, those are the wrong answer choices. So it is D, and it's just gotten to the point where I count the number of words on certain answer choices in the writing section, just because it's very helpful. So answer choice A was 4 words long. Answer choice B was 1 word long. Answer choice C was 2 words long. And answer choice D was delete the underlined portion, which is the right selection here. So you can always count the number of words in the writing section. It's not cheating. It's very helpful. So count the number of the words in the answer choices. See if you can eliminate some wordy answer choices. So that's one way of approaching this question. Another way is to consider informal versus formal. Well, these words on top of that sound extremely informal to me. And most often the SAT maintains a formal style and objective tone. So you should not select informal answers typically on the SAT. They're testing you on formal versus informal. So on top of that it sounds like a very informal way of saying likewise in addition. So even though answer choices B and C are the formal answer choices, they are also incorrect. So they're testing you a little bit on formal versus informal, but mainly these words don't even belong at the end of this sentence. They're all unnecessary. They're mainly testing you on wordiness here versus concision. The concise answer choice is usually the correct answer choice. So if you can express yourself with fewer words and still get your meaning across, you probably should, according to the College Board. These flowery, long answer choices are typically the wrong answer choices. And we're going to see some more examples of this as we go along in this course. Let's look at number 5. So number 5 is the sequencing question. So they will test your ability to logically sequence material on the SAT. And they always give you a clue for a sequencing question. They have to give you a clue. They write these paragraphs so specifically that this sentence could only go in one place within this paragraph. They write it so clearly, they always give you a clue. Here's the clue. It's these words right here. These clinical trials. That's our clue. Those words, these clinical trials, right here, that's our clue in our new sentence that we're adding. So what do I mean by a clue? This new sentence must immediately follow whatever sentence mentions the clinical trials. That's all that this has. It's the only place this sentence can go within this paragraph. Trust me. They write these so specifically that it just fits like a glove once you put it into the right home. So this sentence must immediately follow whichever sentence mentions the clinical trials. Which sentence mentions the clinical trials? It's this one. It's sentence 3. So the new sentence must immediately follow sentence 3. And once you've chosen a home for your new sentence, always read it in its place in the paragraph. It should fit like a glove. It must fit like a glove. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to read this sentence in its new home. It should fit perfectly. Let's try it. I'm going to read sentence 3. Others may assist in designing clinical trials and assess blood or tissue samples from patients involved in such experimental medicine. These clinical trials may hold the key to discovering new pathogens or identifying molecular information vital to the diagnosis and treatment of patients. So that's a sequencing question. They will ask you to move some things around within the paragraph, but they always give you a clue. They have to give you a clue. They write these paragraphs so specifically the sentence cannot logically exist anywhere else. So that's sort of just to give you an idea of how the College Board writes these types of questions. That's sort of what they do here. They put something in there that depends on a previous sentence, and it must immediately follow the previous, whatever the sentence that was. They write them correctly first, and then they mess them up. They just move the sentence somewhere else, or in this case, we're adding a new sentence. So that's what they're testing you on here. That's just a sequencing question. They always give you a clue for a sequencing question. So I wanted to mention that they removed the SAT essay. Sorry. No more SAT essay. The SAT essay is gone forever. I just wanted to mention this because your blue book will talk about the SAT essay, and it will even give you SAT essays. They don't exist anymore. You can't even write one. We will talk about an essay that you probably will have to write, a Common App essay in another lesson. But just be aware that there's no more essay on the actual SAT. They eliminated it this year. So that's gone. So I'm going to pass you back to Mrs. Hessler for some more math. We're going to do the Heart of Algebra Part 1, right? I'm going to bring that lesson up real quickly for you guys. So just find the Heart of Algebra Part 1 packet. I'm going to bring it up for Mrs. Hessler, and she's just going to go over a little bit more math for you, and that will be all for today. So that's just an overview of the English that you'll see on the SAT. Broad strokes, big picture. But here's Mrs. Hessler back for a little more math. Find this packet, says Heart of Algebra Part 1, and I will hand you over to her skilled hands right here.
Okay, gentlemen, so hopefully you've got that packet, and today's purpose was just basically to give you, so you could meet us and get acquainted and to sort of know what you have and haven't had. And I'm glad to know we don't leave anybody behind, so you will know how to do that circle problem before you leave us. I know we did broach some things that were a little hard. So what we're going to do now is this Heart of Algebra Part 1 packet. Okay? And just to start with, we're going to stop at 5 because we've given you a lot. And if we don't finish this packet, we'll pick it up on, we have a class on Thursday at 5:30. And so now you know the drill, and all of you got online without a problem. And hopefully you gain something from, we don't want to waste your time, obviously. So let's look at this part. Tom is X years old. Susan is 3 less than 7 times Tom's. How many years old is Susan? So this is just getting used to word problems, which often are problematic even for people in graduate school. So let's look at question 1. Melissa paid $80 last month to her health club and visited the club at least once last month. If she visited the club X times, what was her cost per visit in dollars in terms of X? So we could take a stab at it, but let's pick a number. Let's say she went to the club 10 times. Because this can give you, even if you see this, so then we know she would pay $8 a time. So let's see if we put in 10 for X. Wow, she should have her head examined if she pays $800 to go to the gym for 1 time. This doesn't make sense, but D makes sense because that gives us $8 a time. So you'll see questions like this, and if you're confused or you just want to check your process, picking numbers is a good strategy we sort of learned today. Oh, CJ asked how long do these classes go, and we're going to be done by 5. So I think I answered your question. It's 3 hours every time. And so Cornell, good luck with your football team, and you can watch the video later on the YouTube channel. So I know it may seem a little long, but we only have a half hour left. Is that okay for CJ? We'll be done by 5. Isaac, you're confused on this question, Isaac, or you're confused that we're going to be, let me go through this again. So Melissa's paying $80 to her health club, and she's going at least once last month. Let's say she went 10 times. What was her cost per visit in terms of X? So if you look at this, I'm assuming you're not questioning the, we'll be done at 5. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're not going to kill you guys. Again, I'm just hoping you learned something today, that's all. Okay, sorry, Isaac. So she goes to the health club, and she's going at least once. Let's say she's going X times. What was her cost per time? And we're given these choices. And so we could think to ourselves, oh, she pays $80 and divides by how many times she goes. So it would be 80 over X. And maybe you would just see this. But let's say perhaps you don't see it. Then you can pick a number or just check yourself. So this is a strategy. I know we're trying to equip you today, and I hope this isn't that painful, CJ, that you're asking, how long does this go? We'll be done at 5. We'll stop at 5 no matter where we are. Like I said, I'm not going to leave anybody behind on anything. So let's say she goes 10 times to her club and she works out. Then she's paying $8 a time. So we want the answer when we put in the 10. So would she pay $10 a time, $800 a time, 10 over 80 a time, or 8 over 10? So the answer is going to be D. So this is just a method. If this looks too abstract and you're having a little difficulty, this helps you see what the answer is. So if you see 1, just put it in the chat room. Isaac, did that help? Oh, I'm sorry, CJ. CJ thought it was 2 hours. I'm sorry. Okay, no worries. I'm sorry. It's all going to pay off when you get scholarship money. We've had people that say, I've had people that get, okay, so Isaac is good. Okay, there's usually a question like this on the test, and we're going to be dealing with a lot of slopes and systems on Thursday while Cornell is running. What position do you play, Cornell? I'm just interested. Okay, so anyway, he can be answering that while we go on. So Courtney goes to college 580 miles from home. So that's our y-intercept. And she goes home at an average speed of 58 miles per hour. Oh, wow, that's an exciting position. You're the one that scores, right? Have you had any touchdowns this year? Wow, that's exciting. So, if we've had y equals mx plus b, and that's what we're going to work on Thursday. So anyway, if she's going at 58 miles per hour, that has to be our rate. Oh, 6 touchdowns. That's amazing. I'm excited. My dad was a high school football coach, so. Okay. So anyway, okay, so we got to focus on this because we want to get your SAT score. That's amazing, Cornell. Maybe I can see some footage later this year. So anyway, okay, back to the math. So if they start at 580 and she comes down at 58, then she will be home, obviously, in 10 hours. So I'd like you to think about this for a second. What answer, gentlemen, looks like it would make sense? So we're starting at 580, that's our B, and then she's going home at 58x. So we know the 58 is her rate. So what answer would give the right answer? Does anybody have an answer, hypothetical answer to number 2? I'm just putting this out there in the chat room. Yes, CJ, good. Does everybody see? We're going to start at 580 and we're going to go home at a negative 58x. So if you see 2, if you just let me know, that would be great. Okay, so Isaac, it's not going to be this answer because we want to know how many miles she is from home. So our rate is going to be a negative 58x because after 1 hour, she'll be so far from home. After another hour, she'll be so far. And it's going to take her 10 hours to get home. So that's a little confusing. Do you see, Isaac, that it will be, so Cornell sees it. Isaac, I want to just be sure that you see it. Do you see 2? It's not A because we're starting at 580 and we're going back. She's going back home. Okay, great, Isaac, good. Make all our mistakes here. I like to think that I'm going to give you at least 30 points with every packet. So let's look at this one. A paper towel dispenser gives an 8-inch length of paper towel each time a sensor is activated. So you push down the sensor and you get 8 inches comes out. Which of the following would give how many times the sensor is activated? What's the length of the paper towel? So if we have, if we hit it twice, we should get out a 16-inch length of paper towel. So it obviously would be B. 8 times how many times we hit it. So that's pretty good. Okay, this one is a little more difficult. I'm assuming everybody got the paper towel. And again, sort of no pain, no gain. So the sum of x and 4 okay, it's going to be less than the square of the difference between x and 4, but greater than the square of 1/2 x. So the question is, do I have to square the 1/2? And the answer is yes. So since it's in the parentheses, I have to square that. And I'm sorry, CJ, that you thought it was only 2 hours. But you can see there's a lot of information. And that's why, we're giving you strategies, obviously, but if anything, we're over preparing you. Okay, and so this answer would be A. Okay, so if you see 4, just put that in the chat room. I promise we'll close at 5 o'clock. And thank you for being honest when you don't see it, because my job, if math isn't your thing, okay, so Cornell sees it. This is your last hard math push. CJ sees it. And like I said, we're just a small family here, so. And Isaac sees it. Oh, good. Okay, let's try this one. The time t required to pick apples varies directly to the number of bushels of apples to be picked. So you've had direct variation your whole school career. So it's y equals kx. So as one thing goes up, the other thing goes up. Okay, so we know the more bushels we have, k is going to be our constant. So with direct variation, the more bushels we have, the more time it's going to take, obviously, like the picture shows. But the people, if we have more people, it's an inverse, and you had this in science class maybe with Boyle's law. So this would be y equals k direct with the bushels, but inverse, because the more people, the less time it will be, and so this one is C. So if you see 5, just let me know, just a few more minutes. And CJ, I apologize that you thought it was only 2 hours. But it's your future. So this is going to make a difference. That I trust that the box that came to your house will catapult you into your next. Okay, so CJ is okay with 5. So let me go over this for Isaac. So the bushels is direct. Like you've had that all through school. Is one thing goes up, the other thing goes up. So that's the y equals KB part. But the people, the more people you have, the less it's going to take as far as the time. Because our y is our, well, we have a t that's time. Sorry, no wonder you were a little bit confused. So the more bushels I have, the more the time will go up. If I have more people, the time will go down. And that's why it's C. Okay, thanks, CJ. You make me feel better. It's all going to pay off, I promise you. I mean, you can see, hopefully already today, some of you have gotten a lot of tips. Okay, so everybody's good. Isaac, are you good with 5 right now? We try, I mean, we don't waste your time. Every minute we try to make profitable. So, like I said, I'm hoping this box will catapult you to your next stage in life in like a year or 2. So, Isaac, are you okay with this being C? As the bushels go up, the K is going to be a specific number, but the bushels are going to increase the time, but the people are going to decrease the time. Okay, so Isaac's got that. Okay, we're going to go to this part now. And I promise to stop at 5, and we'll just have to pick up this packet on Thursday. So in harder questions, it sometimes can be more complicated, and that's why I'm saying the pick the numbers thing. Okay, let's look at this one. Angela has X photographs, whatever number that is. I picked 10. And her photo album can hold, and I'm just picking numbers here, 3 per page. If there are Z photographs left over, how many pages are in the album in terms of X, Y, and Z? Okay, so anyway, you don't have to draw the picture, obviously, but I'm thinking you might say to yourself, oh, I get it, Mrs. Hessler. I just have to take the number of photos, subtract the ones left over, and divide by the number of pages. Or divide by what's ever left over. But that might be a little complicated. So here, I just have an example. So if I put in A, and this is again to equip you to get about 50 more points on the test. So if I try A, I'm going to get 11 over 3, which I want to get 3 pages. Because I can sort of see that's what I've got. So if I try C, X minus Y, that'll be 7 over 1. That's not going to work. This is not going to work. But look at D. If I try 10 minus 1 over 3, I'm going to get 9 over 3, which will give me 3. And so D is my answer. And so this is just a strategy that's going to equip you for harder math problems. Okay, let's go on to the next one. We just have 15 more minutes left. Okay. The rate for a telephone call between city, we did one like this before. So it's 50 cents for the first minute and 20 cents for each additional minute. Okay. So let's just say we're going to have a call, and let's say it's going to be 4 minutes. So the first minute is going to be 50 cents. And then we have 20 cents for the other. And so that would be 3 minutes left. So we have 60 cents. So we want our call to be $1.10. Okay, so what answer would give us $1.10? If I put in 4, oh, this is going to be 3.20. That makes no sense. This one would be, I'm putting 4 in, and this might be a tempting one, but that's going to be $1.30, which isn't the $1.10 I want. But look at C. If I put in 4, I'm going to get 5 plus 60 cents, which is the $1.10. And so C is my answer. If you see one, just let me know. And like I said, we only have a couple more minutes, and we'll finish this we'll finish this packet Thursday. Okay, so Isaac's okay with that. And again, this could be a monitoring. You might be able to see how to do it, but this is a strategy, and it can get you like, okay, so CJ is good, and Cornell's good. Good. Okay, let's try this one. For every $10 Nakia earns, she gives $4 to her younger sister, Jasmine, who helps her. Which of the following gets the relationship between D, the dollars Nakia earns, and J? So we know that. Let's try A. So if we is 10 equals 4 times 4 over 10. So that'll be 10 equals 16 over 10. That does not work. So let's try B. 10 equals 10 times 4 over 4. Bingo, we have a winner. So I'm going to sort of assume you all see that one. Okay. This one's a little tougher. I don't know if you get one this hard, but again, speaking of football, I'm sort of taking you to the end zone a lot of times. And this is the Peloton math. But if it gets you 100 points more in math, and that's on the low side, it's all worth it. So let's say 10 pounds of apples cost $10. So it's $1 a pound. So 6 of the apples weigh a pound. So 6 apples are going to cost $1. So we have a dozen such apples. So that's in our little world going to cost $2. So that, but we want to change it into cents. So that's 200 cents. So which answer, when I put 10 in for D, gives me 200, and it would be A. Okay, I'm just looking for question marks if anybody is confused. But if everybody's okay, we'll just move on. Okay, this would be way in the end zone. And again, mostly I'm just trying to equip you with strategies. So this was the last question on a test. And again, by the time you start, when we take our practice test, okay, so Isaac was confused back here. Okay, thanks, Isaac. So we're just saying 10 apples cost $10. So that's $1 a pound, right? I picked a reasonable number. 6 of the apples weigh 1 pound, so 6 would cost $1. Sorry. 6 apples cost $1. This may help. So 12 apples would cost, that's $1 there, sorry. 12 apples would cost $2. So that means $2, but they're nasty. They ask for it in terms of cents. So we know $2 would work into 200 cents. And so if we put the 10 in, does it make sense? It would be A. Isaac, does that make sense to you now? If you see 3, just let me know. And again, I'm sort of over preparing you. So I'm just waiting for Isaac to let me know if this is good. It's just, instead of dealing with all these abstractions, you're thinking hypothetically in a concrete way. And it's a little easier. It's easier for me. Instead of dealing with all this algebra, to make a situation and then find out what kicks out the answer. And so when you see some of these on the test, it'll make sense to you. Okay, it's $1 per pound. Okay, let's see. $1 for 1 pound of apples. Hey, Jim, I'm going to need you a second.
Yeah.
So $1 is a pound. Okay, okay, he got it. Okay, Isaac, great. Okay, now we're moving on. A couple more. That's okay. I'm so glad that you guys are honest with me and not pretending. If you don't see it, let me know. So this was a last question on the test. To celebrate a colleague's birthday, and coworkers in an office agreed to contribute to a catered lunch. So let's say we have 5 coworkers in our office. And the whole lunch, it's $20 for each guy to go, so it's $100. It's sort of a pricey lunch. But they're putting in a stipulation. 3 of the coworkers are cheap. Okay. Oh no, let's say there's 2 cheap guys. So the way it's now, everybody's paying $12. But if 2 are cheap, that means 3 people have to pay $100. So that would be, everybody's going to be paying. The paying people are $33.33. We want to know how much more they have to, the good people that are paying have to pay. So if they, instead of the $20, each of them have to pay $13.33. So let's see what answer kicks out the $13.33, because I might look at all these variables and go, oh my goodness, I can't do that. So if I do A, X was $20 for the lunch. So, $100, X is 100. I'm sorry about that. So that's 100 over 5. That's $20 for the lunch. We don't want that. We want the $13.33. And again, I'm not taking you to the end zone to be mean. So here, if we had X over N minus C, that would be 100 over 3, that's not what we want. So let's try C. So this is going to be, our x is 100 times 3 over n, which is 5. That's not going to work. It better be D. Let's try it. C times x. So that'll be 200 over 5 times 3, which is 15. And that will give us our 1333. And so just what I'm proposing to you is, if you get one like this, if you get a little confused, you could just put in numbers. Okay, a couple more minutes, just 4 minutes. Maybe we can do the last 2. So a telephone company, let's say the first minute is the most expensive. Let's say it's 50. And let's say the charges, so our X is 50 cents. Everything after that is 25 cents. And so the certain call is $7.75. What is going to be the length of the call in minutes? So we're going to subtract the call is $7.75. So our first minute is going to be 50 cents. And then we have 725 divided by 25. And there's 4 quarters, so this will be 29 minutes. So our call, we want to be 30 minutes. And it might be hard looking at all these to think about this logically.
See this last question here?
Oh, why is it 13? Okay, good question from Isaac. Because, awesome, Isaac, thank you. The 3333 is the cost when 5 are paying. Or that's, the 3333 is what the 3 people have to pay. But it says how much additionally must they pay. So where they had to pay 3333, and I'm so glad you're asking questions, they have to pay the 3333. How much more is that than their original $20? Does that make sense? Isaac, that what they have to pay, the additional amount in dollars. And I know I'm stretching you. Okay, he's okay now. All right, back to our phone call. So we know we have to get 30 minutes, but I'm so glad you guys are with me and asking questions, even though this is 3 hours. I'm sorry, but you know, when you consider it's your whole future and maybe scholarship money, we've had kids who, if they got 2 more questions, they would have a full scholarship at Kent State, and so each question winds up being like $15,000. So for A, if we put in the 50 cents, we'd have 725 divided by 25. This would only be 29 minutes. It's not going to work. This one would be 770. This one's not going to work. But look at C. If I take 775 minus the 50 cents, that takes us to 725 plus a Y, that gives us 750. Then I divide by 25 cents, I get 30 minutes. And where it might be hard to look at this and make sense of it, this much is easier. Okay, last question, and we're going to sign off. But just save this packet. I know we're at 5 o'clock, but
this one's easy, luckily.
Yeah, this is easy. At a clothing store, so Mark's going to buy 2 shirts and 1 pair of pants. So he's spending $85. Let's say his pants we're going to say they're $25. So he has 2 shirts that are $30 each, because I have to get the price. So I have to get an answer that comes out 30. When I put in A, I'm not getting 30. When I put in B, it doesn't work. Let's try C. 85 minus N. Well, I want my N to be $30. That doesn't work. But look at D. 85 minus the N I had. Oh, the pants. Wait, let's see. Yeah, the pants were, we said the pants were $25. So 85 minus 25 is 60 over 2. So it's going to be $30. So the answer will be D. Okay, I'm sorry if there's any questions. So I'm going to sign off now. Thank you, gentlemen. And good luck with your football game, Cornell, Thursday. And we hope you learned something today. I know we stretched you a lot. So we'll sign off for now, and you can just say goodbye or something. Just
Great meeting you all.
Great meeting you all. I hope I didn't torture you too much. Just put a bye in the chat room. So CJ only thought this was 2 hours.
It's intensive, but it's worth it.
It's worth it. Bye, Cornell. Bye, Isaac.